This interview was made possible in part by a grant from Arts DFW.
Today, we're at the Kimbell Art Museum to speak with curator George Shackelford about the exhibition, Bonnards Worlds. George, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for coming to visit us.
I wanted to start by asking about the exhibition title. What was the inspiration for arranging it as a series of worlds?
You know, when the Kimbell bought this magnificent painting by Bonar in 2018, I was researching the sort of the origins of the painting, and I found that, in fact, contrary to my suspicion, it was painted for a client. It was painted specifically for a place in this client's house, made to measure, if you will. And yet it was a painting about Bonnard himself. It was about, I mean, he's in the painting. The house in which he has recently come to live is in the painting. The view from the landscape above that house is the subject of the painting. And I thought, why is he painting a painting that's so much personal, so personal for somebody else? And I came to realize that, you know, I stepped back a little bit and thought, okay, you know, dummy, he paints everything is about what he lives. All of his art is about what he lives, so that every bit of it is in some way about the worlds, plural, in which he lived. Not only the places, but the situations, the occasions of his life. So a walk in the landscape, a visit to the garden, lunch on the terrace, the view from inside the dining room out to the landscape, the view of the dining room table. And then once you leave the public rooms of the house, the dining room and the living room, the privacy of the bedroom and the bath and the mirror, the most private space of all.
So Bonnard said, it's not a matter of painting life, but it's about making painting come to life. Can you tell me more about that?
Bonnard's, all of Bonnard's art was about his life in a way, about the experiences that he had, things he saw, and yet he wasn't trying to paint his life. He wasn't trying to be autobiographical in any way. It just happened. That's just how it ended up. And about, I think what he means when he says making painting come alive, making painting come to life, many translations for the possible French phrase. I think he meant that you had to take something that was, after all, pretty inanimate, canvas, pencils, brushes, paint, and make an image of something, because he was not, for all that he had a great sense of abstract composition, he was not an abstract artist. To take the inspiration and to take the raw materials of the art and then to bring something to fruition, to the finish on the canvas that seemed to have the presence of life, seemed to have the suggestion to the viewer of a real lived experience. And I think that's what he meant by making painting come to life, was to give it that sense of not so much truth as, and not even verisimilitude. Didn't care about making things look like they looked. It's about making them look like they felt in a way, or look like the idea of them.
Could you tell me a little bit more about his approach?
Yeah. So Bonar painted, certainly in his maturity, he painted almost exclusively from memory. He made drawings, little sketches, sometimes in his notebook, his pocket agenda, pieces of scraps of paper, you know, backs of letters, bills, sort of anything that was to hand when he had an idea, because he wanted to sort of freeze the idea and set it down, and then from that, a little squiggle maybe, could arise a painting. And the painting would be made away from the source of inspiration so that he could keep the idea in his head without being distracted by the actual motif into trying to mimic it too much. He says at one point that people talk about surrendering to nature, you know, the painter giving way to what he sees before him. And he says, but it's also about surrendering to the painting. So the painting becomes more important than its reflection of any kind of reality. And I think you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at Bonar.
Right, so the painting has its own autonomy, like it's
Absolutely.
its own world.
And its own set of distortions.
Mm-hmm.
Its own, if you look at paintings in this exhibition that you know are all painted in the same room, well, they could be 3 different rooms. Almost, you know, in one he makes the window narrow, in another it's wide, and in yet another there's a great group of paintings painted in his upstairs sitting room in his little house in the south of France, the house that's in the Kimbell painting. Each time there's a different emphasis. You know, one time the mirror becomes more important, one time the door is more important, one time there's a figure in the foreground, big, slightly smaller, none at all. There are all these variations painted over the course of several years, and yet they're all about the same thing.
So Bonnard seemed to have a special relationship with a model that we see throughout the exhibition.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about her role in his life and career?
Oh, it's very, very important. Bonar, the young Bonar, he's in his 20s. He meets a young woman, a little bit younger than him, who goes by the name of Marthe de Méligny, so Martha, but the French version of Martha, Marthe. And this last name, de Méligny, which it was completely made up. Her birth name was Maria Boursin, but when she came to Paris, she took on this new name. He met her as Marthe. She stayed Marthe for the rest of her life and their relationship. They come together in 1893. They're together until she dies in 1942, so 50 years of living together. They marry only in 1925, officially, but from the very beginning, she is, to all intents and purposes, and to everyone around them, Madame Bonnard. She is Mrs. Bonnard from the beginning. And you see her repeatedly in his paintings. You see her in the garden. You see her at the breakfast table. You see her in this painting right behind us, looking in through the outside window. And then at the end of the exhibition, you see her in the bathtub again and again, involved in the ritual of bathing, which was, I think, important to her life. She was sickly and I think enjoyed the comforts of the bath, but it also provided him with a pretext for painting the female nude, one of the great canonical subjects in Western art after the Renaissance, and in Greek art and Greco-Roman art long before. But the nude, whether male or female, and predominantly female in paintings, was one of the subjects that he took up with great seriousness around 1900 and keeps painting until the year he dies.
I'm curious about the reception of his work in America during and after his life.
It's really interesting. The painting that we're sitting in front of right now was shown in San Francisco in 1915 in the Pan-Pacific exhibition that was set up as a kind of World's Fair in San Francisco in 1915. It was sent across to that exhibition by Bonar's gallery, and then it toured around the country, went to St. Louis, Cleveland, I think Detroit, and as far as I can tell, no mention made of it anywhere. In all of the little booklets printed for these exhibitions, it was never chosen for illustration. Listed, but not reproduced. And so there he is in the teens being shown in America. People could see his art. In 1924, he has a great success at the Carnegie International Exhibition held in Pittsburgh, and it was really one of the most important painting exhibitions that was held on an annual basis in the world. Paintings came from all over Europe and America to be exhibited there. And at that exhibition in 1924, a man named Duncan Phillips, who was originally from Pittsburgh but was living in Washington, and had opened his collection as a museum of modern art 5 years before, in 1919. Duncan Phillips buys his first Bonnard, the first of about 25 works by Bonar that he accumulates over the course of the next 20 years or so. And it's a beautiful painting of Marthe Bonar with one of their dogs, their many dachshunds, all named Poussette. And Marthe and one of the Poussettes are seated at a table, and it's the most tender, beautiful image of two beings, one human, one canine, that are in a terrific rapport of sympathy with each other. It's very, very clear. And for Bonar, it was also a real revelation of endearment and how important his wife and their pets were to them. So Duncan Phillips buys this painting in 1924. It's the first painting in an American museum by Bonar. It picks up, in particular, just after Bonar's death, when the Museum of Modern Art and the Cleveland Museum of Art consecrate a big retrospective exhibition to him in 1948. And I think that exhibition was profoundly influential, above all on artists. Lots of painters that I can tie to their, well, circumstantially, I can tie to their experience of that exhibition. Among them, Diebenkorn, Rothko, quite a number of artists whose work doesn't really look like Bonnard's, but where you can see things that they must have appreciated. Color, the nuance of color, the vibrancy of color, the way color can be a cool color and yet shimmer on the surface of the painting. These are things that you find, particularly like in Rothko, that I think Bonar must have shown him a way, while he never painted a picture that looked like a Bonar. But the mastery of color is something to emulate.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure being here.
Find all of our videos and sign up for our newsletter at artthisweek.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.